Hey there, this is Avery Jenkins here, the Health and Purpose Podcast. Welcome. Today we have my dear friend, Mr. John Minks of Deep Space Sound. John is a sound engineer extraordinaire, sound healer as it may. John, why don't you introduce yourself here?
Well, first of all, Avery, it's great to see you, my good friend. Avery and I have been friends for a long time, and it was a real honor to be asked to join you on this podcast today. So thanks for coming to the studio. We're here in my pop-up studio in Woodstock, New York, at the gongs all surrounding us. I've been working with sound as a healing modality for going on 18 years. I've been a sound therapist the past 5, working primarily with metal instruments, the handpan, the gongs, tuned plates and chimes. I've got a business that Deep Space Sound creates gong mallets. I've been creating custom mallets for gong players all over the world, and combining all those kind of facets together. I hold retreats a few times a year, meditation retreats, yoga, everything combined with sound. So really exploring the possibilities of sound with these instruments and how it can be extended into healing areas and modalities that previously were not thought of to be accompanied with sound.
That's so cool. How did you get into all this?
It's interesting. I've always loved music, and I've always been attracted to these certain sounds. I mean, I heard the didgeridoo for the first time in 2006 in the Amazon of all places, and I started to play there. And so the didgeridoo was really my first instrument in the sound healing world, so to speak. And I was playing it mostly for myself and for my friends. I really enjoyed I enjoyed the meditative practice of it and where it took me inside my head. And I played a lot of guitar and use it, both in band settings as like a soothing application for myself, so to speak. So I'm playing a lot of guitar, and in 2020 I had my first sound journey in the way it's known today, with these instruments, singing bowls, gongs, and I was incredibly taken by where it took me in my head. Its ability to like bypass my somewhat of my own programming and access areas of myself that I found very, very difficult to access, or sometimes difficult to process. And the place I was taken, especially with the sound of the gong, piqued my curiosity into how this can be used to help myself and help others. So I started getting myself into the world of sound, and I was really drawn to the gongs in particular, and have quite a few of them, and been using them as to help myself, and as I mentioned, for my sound therapy and for our retreats. So where it is now, I find myself in the studio and looking at how I can expand the offerings. So, doing more retreats. I've been, working with these mallets extensively. And because of that, have a very unique relationship with a lot of the gong makers and with the gongs themselves. So really, thinking creatively of how to offer this and where this can be applied, to help others.
Very cool. You're talking about helping others, primarily with sound. I'm sure most people have heard of like music therapy or even sound healing these days, in meditation settings and yoga settings and stuff like that. And I have had my own experiences, with you and other people. We have other friends, Thomas Workman, who was also into sound healing going way back. And I can recall, for personally, if anyone out there wonders like what this is good for, like what it can help, I've found it incredibly soothing for like any kind of depression or mental anguish or sadness or just more subtle emotions that maybe we sometimes repress, that we hold in, right? And I can think of many times just lying down in just total surrender, almost on the edge of sleep, but feeling the vibrations of the gong or the bowls or your little squeeze box thing that you have over there. I mean,
Surety box that.
the vibrations are very soothing and allow you to access little pockets of emotion that maybe you repressed throughout the day or throughout the month or maybe for the last 30 years. And, it's something, as a man, sometimes we can harden ourselves and not be able to access that part of ourselves, you know, and maybe we haven't cried in a decade. You know what I mean? Like I've been in a position with sound where it just touches something, it brings up a memory or something like that, almost like it bubbles up and the sound just goes zip, and it does something to soothe it. Have you had any kind of experience like that?
Yeah, well, so it's very interesting you say, like, on a very basic level, so much of the diseases and medical challenges we have are rooted in stress, and so much of one of the best ways we can help ourselves, has been proven, is to de-stress ourselves. And people have a lot of ways of doing that, and often that can be very difficult, of how to de-stress ourselves. Um, and you just mentioned in your experiences being on the edge of sleep, and as sound healing becomes more popular, there is much more science being done about exactly what the sound is doing to our bodies, and it does a lot of things. But one thing that has been proven to do is to alter our brainwave activity. It has like the power to immediately take us from like a beta or an alpha state of mind, where we're awake thinking, our mind is active, to a delta or even a theta state of mind, which, as you mentioned, on the edge of sleep. Theta is our brainwave activity, is where we reach when we're in deep sleep. And it has been proven that is when cellular regeneration happens, is when we are at our most relaxed. And it's also been proven, interestingly enough, that it is where we are most creative.
Well,
So, for people who are, very active or have active jobs, or, are busy parents, like it can be we can all easily get very stressed. And to de-stress ourselves can be a very difficult thing. And the sound has been proven, just by laying there, just by being in the presence of it. It's like it takes you, it's like an express elevator to that state of mind where we are most relaxed, and our bodies can help to heal and de-stress itself. So I've experienced a lot of it myself. I mean, my first experience with, these instruments, as I mentioned before, I was so taken by the place it took me in my head. I mean, you mentioned briefly about being able to access memories, and it's so much more than that. I mean, yes, you can access memories, and yes, you can recall points of your life, or even have I mentioned that it somewhat bypasses my programming in a way where we're talking about trauma. My personal experience, I'm dealing with
oh yeah,
a lot of back pain right now. I've got herniated disc in my back, and when it goes out, which it did a couple months ago, I think now, and I feel myself traumatized from it. Even the
yeah,
thought of it, like, makes my body tense up, and have like there's a pain association with that.
sure.
And so with the sound, I've done this to myself, where sitting down, using the sound, but the vibrations healing my physical body, but I can feel it, what it is doing to my mind, the place it takes me. It somehow of subverts, or like, disassociates, and it enables me to change my opinion, enables me to like change my perspective and approach these areas, which, I may have, which may induce trauma, or I may have kind of feel like I'm in a loop in my head, enabling me to access them and analyze them in a different way. Why? Because our mind is in a different brainwave state. It's in a different place to, change our opinion about things, analyze it differently, be in a more relaxed state of mind, and maybe like, be more creative about our solutions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've talked about this with you already, but I mean, I just see also this being applied in multiple settings. Like there's the idea and the concept, and actuality of, just as an individual, like lying down on a mat, like you've got a mat over here, right? And having you just, perform your magic with all these beautiful instruments here. And, in a very personalized setting. I could also easily see it, and I know that it occurs within yoga classes and gatherings, of many people all laying down on mats or whatever. And I'm thinking of these applications of using it during cleansing, during fasts, where, it's an integrated process where you have times where you're learning, maybe in a lecture style, and then also times where you're going through that physical cleansing, whether that's hydrotherapy or and through diet or whatever, with these interims with the sound. because I've done fasting before and gone through diets, and there's an emotional component to it. It can be really stressful when you're removing something, sugar, alcohol, or different things that affect your chemistry very greatly. Like you can go through a deep emotional purge at the same time as this physical cleansing, right? And I can see, and I've for me, I've gone through moments like through a fast or a more rigorous mental, emotional process that I put myself through, right? Spiritual training or whatever, right? And the sound, the music, the tones, they help you, they help carry you through it.
They certainly can.
And maybe even in some settings could help on a molecular or cellular level, like either uptake new nutrients in a revitalization program or help you pass the gnarly stuff out through some kind of detox. Maybe that vibration, do you think that, and I asked our dear friend Bryce Healy, Dr. Bryce Healy, a couple weeks ago when we spoke, if he felt like visualization had a strong component within healing, and we were talking about how actually it greatly magnifies the healing process if you can go through also a process of meditative visualization of the results you're looking for, or fixing the ailment or finding the ailment or anything like that. And do you feel like there's an element with the sound too, coupled with that can help in that visualization process with the healing?
It's funny you say that. I really truly believe there is. And part of the study that is the result of the studies that have been done is exactly what these vibrations, forget the sound, but you play these gongs and you stand close to them, it is a visceral physical reaction. Like they call it, in a gong, we call it pushing air, but you really feel the percussive element of the air on your body. And so there's been studies of what exactly this percussive element, its effects on our cells are, what it's doing to the water inside of us. It's
what's the name of that Japanese guy?
That's exactly what I was talking about. I like Yamamoto or something like that.
Yeah, well, I'll find it. I'll put.
But exactly. So the power of vibration and intention, good thoughts on water. So in combination with these gongs, knowing that these vibrations are realigning our cellular chemistry, are reconfiguring and holistically activating the water molecules in our body. To be playing the gong or be receiving a sound session with that in mind, like the visualization of the all the atoms being structurally reintegrated and the alignment being upgraded. Absolutely, there's that visualization component with the sound, and especially now that we know what the sound is doing, sitting in front of the gong, feeling that, and actually manifesting the reality of the sensations, upgrading your whole system.
Mm.
Holistically, wiggling them in an upgraded form.
Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely.
And do you see this as something you go and try out once, or something that you feel like it's really good for with an integrated long-term process?
I think it depends on each person. I mean, I find myself enjoying it every single day, and I've been really actually using these vibrations on my back and doing this exact thing you're talking about, feeling these vibrations and believing that the sensations I'm feeling is my back being healed.
Yeah.
And so, for people like me with herniated discs, it's I'm no doctor, but I would be surprised if elongated, repeated sound therapy to that specific area did not yield positive effects.
Right. I completely agree. Again, I was talking to Dr. Bryce, about the importance of visualization. And, it comes back to, from a holistic sense, the human body is designed to heal itself. It's designed to grow and to be able to heal itself. So it makes sense if there was a connection from our minds to that process, that we could maybe assist our molecular, cellular, DNA apparatus in focusing on the task at hand, whether it's, an injury in your back, or, improving your vision, or, getting better balance, or whatever it might be in the direction that you want to improve.
Yeah. And they say that, smell is the strongest sense tied to memory. And I believe that sound is the strongest sense tied to emotion.
Mm.
You know, as you were mentioning before, like the power of sound, you're going, you know, think of like, you know, your favorite song or your favorite band, like its ability to like, you know, pull you out of a tough time, or you listen to it when you need like some support, you know, that right there, that is like directly using the sound, like as an emotional support system, you know, and not any like, dependent or negative way. Like it's, you know, we use the tools we have, and to have these instruments or the sound in general to have the ability to like, you know, shift the energy. And we're exactly what I was talking about before. Like, you know, its ability to shift our mindset. And maybe that is because it has the ability just to like, you know, stay in the beta or alpha state of mind, but just like bring our emotions up, or if it's like, you know, actually like restructuring our mental chemistry to like end up in a better place.
Yeah.
You know, like, um, you know, you know, using the sound as like a tool for our emotions and our imagination, you know, to like help like guide and shape
Yeah. Almost like
the emotions we want.
almost a tool to like help to fuel your visions.
Precisely.
It's not in a hallucinatory sense, but to fuel your vision, like your creation, like what you're trying to do. You know, you can use these sounds as fuel, you know, as a refortification, and at the same as I kind of imagine it, talking about visualization, imagine, you know, your confidence and your feeling of inner security, your feelings of joy. Imagine that like you're tense, you know what I mean? And then you focus energy on stretching, just as you would stretch your muscles, you stretch your emotions. And these vibrations, you visualize these vibrations coming in, and almost like a massage for your emotional body, you know, to break it up, make it more flexible, make it more open. And then in those states, as you emotionally are letting go, the inspiration can come.
No, dude, precisely. I mean, you know, you're even talking about people with like, you know, PTSD or like severe trauma, and you know, enabling them to be in a place where they can, you know, approach and help heal themselves. And, you know, a lot of these people who have these traumatic experiences can't even like address it in their minds because of the emotions it brings up. So if you can introduce sound and that helps them like, you know, cope with it or approach it differently, or not have those just like raw, you know, trigger emotions come up, and have them give them a chance to like process it and heal within themselves, just by having the introduction and like having some sound there. You know, it's a very powerful thing when you can, you know, heal yourself. It's not someone else telling you. It's not a therapist saying what you should do. It's you doing it yourself. And, you know, for people with trauma, people with PTSD, or even, you know, take a step further, and like people with people with dementia.
Right.
There's a lot of studies being done about how is sound helping them and their families like have like more fulfilled lives, like helping their mental cognition like improve. Or even a step further, you know, I was just with my grandpa a few months ago, who passed away. I brought my guitar there and I was playing music for him, and seeing the real change in him, his like tenseness, his like his just general state become so much more peaceful with the introduction of music. And, you know, using sound therapy for end of life care to give, you know, the ones who are who are about to make their passage, like give them a little more security, give them a little more peace. You know, my grandpa was very scared to go, and the sound I know gave him some peace in his mind. So to use this to help those going through their passage, as well as the families, have a little more calm, a little more sense of purpose and meaning, like, is like, you know, invaluable.
Absolutely. You know, I could, you know, for me, just even the inspiration for doing this podcast at all is, you know, I'm 42 now, you know, and just getting to a point where like I have enough life experience to know the things that make me feel alive, and also to know how easy, you know, you can get into routines that, you know, bring you to a point where you're not in your optimum health, you know. So, you know, things like this are incredible tools. If you're going through a process where you're healing something, or if you're going through a process where you're trying to change something, I mean, I think all of us on a basic level can really relate to music, right? So for me, you know, this is a way it can kind of help me, assist me with meditation, because in our world, I feel like we have so much exterior static, kind of chaos coming. I imagine walking down Fifth Avenue, walking down in Times Square in New York City, and you have all the advertising, all the bright lights, all the noise, the traffic, the smells, the good ones, the bad ones, all of it is all there. It's like kind of you're just walking around, or you have your phone with your social media. You're just always on sensory overload. So some of us, if we go and we sit down in the quiet next to a tree, it's like that noise doesn't just go away. You know what I mean? But something like the gong, or all these incredible toys that you have here, instruments as you were, they can send like a field of vibrations that literally like wipes the slate clean. All that noise inside yourself that you're trying to get rid of, suddenly it's just like it paralyzes it, and you can be in peace for a moment, and have help to get to that place. I think that in itself could help everybody.
No, I mean, it's a simple meditation. I mean, my buddy Billy Pinkerton calls these instruments the thought stoppers,
Yeah.
and exactly what you're saying. I mean, like the mind is so overactive, and we are constantly bombarded with sensory overload, with images, with, assumptions, with friggin' provocations, with so much. And when we're, even in our minds, like it can be overwhelming sometimes. And so, people who meditate, I try to meditate. It's hard to meditate. It is not easy to just sit there and quiet your mind. I mean, it's quite difficult. People who have meditated, anyone who has knows this is quite difficult. And so it can require a lot of discipline to sit there and have a practice and like meditate every day. And, but with the sound, as you're saying, it has the ability to change the game. Take meditation just itself, like its ability to quiet your mind, its ability to like enable you to have some peace in your mind. And then what can come from that in terms of like, mental organization, or like de-stress, or like a calmer body, or a more, sense of embodiment in yourself to go about your day. Like, there's very few things that we can do that in the way sound does. Like immediately, like, I mentioned before, the express elevator to the top of the meditation mountain. Like, anyone who's done, yoga or really meditated for a while, you enter this amazing place where it's just super blissful, super relaxed, but it's quite hard to get to. And you listen to the gongs or the bowls or the chimes or the handpan, and it is amazing, its ability to take you there immediately.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat seen as this like new age hippie
Sure.
thing, but sound is one of, if not the oldest healing modality.
Well, also, I wouldn't just say only on like a healing sense. Also for motivation and productivity. I mean, I can imagine on the other end of the spectrum, not thinking about the person who's been traumatized, or the person can't get over the thing, or that, or this, or whatever, right? But thinking about the person who's like hyper successful, right? Maybe they work in an office, maybe they work at home, but they're high performers, the high performers out there, the founders, the CEOs, these types of people, right? CFOs, people that have a lot riding on them. They have other people relying on them for their income. They're supporting families. They have huge production lines that they have to maintain and be accountable all hours of the day, or whatever it may be, right? These high performers. Again, another type of person, different from a different angle, but they have this necessity to wipe the slate clean, to clear up the clutter in the mind, to get focused so that they can go back with refreshed energy and motivation to continue doing what they have to do day in and day out.
No, it's funny you mentioned that. I mean, I think like in more corporate retreats and corporate offsite meetings are incorporating sound healing into their schedules for the exact reasons you said. These guys are high-powered individuals who are often managing and responsible for a whole team. And like, okay, so like, what is the best way to get the most out of your team, right? Of course, they're going to be stressed. They're working super hard, but spend an hour once a week, bring the instruments to the place of business. As we just mentioned, and as the science proves, like this is like one of the best ways to de-stress and lower your anxiety is by listening to these sound.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go anywhere. We bring it to you guys, sit there, relax for an hour. Don't have to stress about anything. And this sound is automatically lowering your heart rate, like releasing tension, making you more relaxed, and going back to what I mentioned at the beginning is, get you in, can oftentimes put you in that theta wave, that theta mindset. And that is where creativity is at its most potent. So think about this for corporate settings. You come into here, not only are you getting your team relaxed and giving them a little break, but you are putting them in the optimal mindset to be their most creative and perform their job at a super high level.
So there's kind of two real good functions for this. What I'm getting out of what you're saying is like, there's the like, let's quiet the mind and remove the clutter, the thought stopper, right? But then there's the raising of that vibration, the journey that is bringing you towards visualization, like calling in the new fresh idea or helping to connect the dots, the epiphany, right?
Absolutely.
Like the visualized epiphany.
No, it is like you said, it's a two-pronged spirit. It's relaxing you, and it's also like putting you in that state of mind that is like where you're most creative. And like, for guys who its job is to think critically and solve problems, like you're putting yourself in a state of mind where you can best achieve that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's wonderful.
Isn't there, can you speak a little bit to, I know there's certain frequencies, right, that like have something that they do. I know that there's that thing where like you put the sand on the drum and then you run the frequency and it makes like snowflakes.
So, this is like, what you're talking about there is cymatics, where certainly like, the vibrations of sound have the potential to make these incredible geometric shapes. And certainly like, talking about frequency and, there's a whole study of that, and there's a lot of different areas, but frequency, and then you're talking about like hertz or tone, like there's obviously a certain, notes that compose music, like a B, for instance, a B1, a B note in the first octave is at 60 hertz. So, okay, there's obviously a certain number associated with these hertz, right? So yes, there's definitely, there's that whole line of numbers associated with certain healing frequencies. There's also like the Schumann resonance, which, I'm not a scientist. I don't know the exact number, but there's a resonance that certainly they've calculated the earth is resonating at a certain frequency.
Like a
certain hum. And then you can amplify it to a certain point where it's audible for us, and, there's a lot of these gong makers are doing planetary series where, they've, associated with these magnetic poles and with the light coming off these planets, they have discovered a certain frequency and then raise it to a certain octave that we can hear. And so these planetary gongs have are resonating in the frequency of that planet they're associated with.
That's cool,
so to speak. And there are certain things certainly that are like mathematically proven. The whole notion of a certain frequency or note is aligned with a certain body part or chakra. I find that to be very subjective. Like a A sharp frequency. Some people might feel that in their crown chakra, and great. Someone feels it in their heart chakra. Who's to say that person is not feeling the A sharp in the heart chakra? You know what I mean?
Right.
But again, this is some of the science that's being done, and I am not an expert. There is certain technologies coming out now where cancer cells are being treated with acoustic vibrations.
That's pretty cool.
And certain acoustic resonances explode the cancer cells, and keep all the other ones intact.
I could see how that could work. And I could also see how like specific frequencies could maybe resonate more potently with specific organs, mainly just because your organs are all different shapes and sizes. So, there might be one tone that it takes to kind of like get to the point where it jiggles your liver the right way.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're all vibration, we're all energy. And sound and these gongs produce energy. So absolutely, you find the right combination of frequencies, and like, there's bound to be, there's the science that's being done of like, finding the resonances that are either good for certain organs or find the resonances that are, harmful for the cancer cells, and using that to like, there's no chemotherapy. It's not invasive. It's a certain resonance that is designed and known to explode certain cancer cells and keep everything else intact.
That's pretty rad.
It is pretty rad.
I could see that. And if it can really isolate the cancer like that, which makes sense on a frequency level, I think, because I just, I'm really into sound. I've always been a musician as well. And, if you just think about like watching a sound wave when you're recording something on your computer, because you can see the little changes in frequency, right? I can imagine that like, different molecules, different elements, so to speak, right? They have different weight, they have different mass, they have different characteristics that you could see how they would resonate one way or another. I mean, different types of metal. Like if this was aluminum, it wouldn't sound the same as it does
Sure.
as brass, right?
Or nickel.
So
This one, yeah, exactly.
nickel, silver, okay, yeah. But like, yeah, it it makes sense that different densities of things, like right down to your organs, like I could see how maybe even like there are frequencies that could assist you with getting rid of heavy metals out of your system at the same time
But
you're doing some kind of cleanse or something.
there certainly could be. Absolutely could be.
It's fascinating stuff. It's cool to imagine. I think it's really cool because it's something. It is a physical, like these vibrations, these waves. They're like measurable things. I think
Precisely.
it's pretty rad to explore some of these concepts. Um, you know, personally, like growing up, I had a couple of moments in my life that were pretty significant that kind of shaped the direction I went. Kind of like what our friend Billy Pinkerton has said about the gongs and the sound being a thought stopper. I remember when I was younger, I used to be doing huge backflips off of rocks and hilltops and climbing trees and just doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And at one point, I busted my leg. I broke my knee, went backwards, and I destroyed my ACL and my meniscus. Couldn't walk. Had to get surgery. It was pretty wild, and that was kind of like a thought stopper. It was a trajectory stopper. It totally changed everything. It was like a fork in the road because suddenly I couldn't walk, and I was super active and wild. You know what I mean? And that made me slow down. And I ended up going down to Costa Rica to work on a biodynamic organic farm. And while I was there, I never used to read books because I was always outside adventuring, getting into trouble, as a youth in the mountains. And when I had this injury, it slowed me down enough to the point where I picked up some books. I remember reading The Secret Life of Plants. And in The Secret Life of Plants is my first introduction to the philosophy behind sound healing, sound vibrations. Because up until that point, I grew up going to different, spiritual settings with my mom, ashrams where there was all sorts of sitars and tamburas and harmoniums and all this stuff going on all the time. So I was around things that you might think of as sound healing, but I didn't think of it as a philosophy until I read the Secret Life of Plants. And they talk about bird song. And they talk about how at dawn, the birds come out and they all sing. And that if you actually measure the capillaries on the leaves of plants, that the bird's song at dawn assists in the opening of the capillaries in the plants to absorb the minerals from the dew that's gathered on their leaves, and they wake up for the day. There's like the leaves almost like start to do a prostration to the sun, right? So this concept that vibration, the vibrational frequency, bird song, music, whatever it is, can actually be so integral in the universe, and that it actually is part of what regulates the carbon dioxide, oxygen life cycle, photosynthesis assistance in the leaves of plants, trees. That's pretty. I mean, like,
if it's doing that for plants, imagine what it's doing for you, dude.
Right. And then the whole concept of the Big Bang, like there was a note, right? I've heard this before. I don't remember where.
In Genesis, at the beginning, there was the word.
Right.
It was sound.
Oh,
like, yeah, for real. No, it's deep, man.
It's a big ohm.
It is weaved into the fabric of like everything we're a part of.
Yeah.
And I think we're just beginning to realize its full like potential and its ability to like help us.
Yeah. And almost like, again, I have to remind myself of the name of the guy in Japan that wrote the book,
right?
With experiments with water and sound and vibration. And I imagine that maybe as water is a recipe for life and light from the sun, maybe sound also is part of the recipe.
For real. No, it's I am very looking forward to seeing what these scientists are coming up with because it is going to be very telling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've adventured with some entheogenic plants and psychedelic compounds in the past, experimenting as a youth, as it were. And I've even had that experience, with sound, and I can attest that you can have some pretty amazing experiences with these vibrations, these sounds, in a heightened state of awareness, like is brought on by entheogenic plants. Do you have any thought on the combination of the two?
I think the two are like better than perfect as a combination for self-exploration and self-discovery.
In this new wave of like psychedelic therapy, like people have been talking about, is places like MAPS and Shakurna, like these institutions that are studying these things or promoting them, as it were. Do you think that it would be good if there was an integral like sound component in some of these therapies?
I certainly do. I mean, for the reasons that we just discussed, its ability to shift your mindset, its ability to change your perspective, combining like the powerful experience of entheogenic plants in combination with like the sound's ability to like literally be the guide to the journey and like help be the kind of the string that helps like relate everything and keep it all cohesive, as in addition to enabling you to like approach things that may be challenging to approach in your mind, giving you the ability to have both tools working symbiotically, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think psychedelics and entheogenic plant medicines, these types of things, they're very interesting, and they can be like beyond explanation, right? So I think the sound, in the essence, again, that was mentioned before, like as sound vibration, these gongs, as being a thought stopper. Some of these, like you mentioned, experiences with these substances, vets going through PTSD. I know in Brazil, they've actually introduced some of these plant medicines into prison systems for therapeutic reasons and this type of thing. The going through a difficult passage and having something like a thought stopper that also brings a positive energy or vibration into you, when you could maybe go down the wrong direction in your mind, you know what I mean? Maybe the part of the guidance is to assist you in experiencing something that you don't understand. Because I know when you have certain emotions like fear or negativity or anger, sometimes your mind can start telling you a story about what that is. Maybe it's just that you're dehydrated or something. You need to drink a little bit of water. But your mind is telling you that your neighbor is going to get you, or like some kind of weird thing, from some traumatic experience you had as a kid, whatever it may be. Maybe you were in war. Maybe you had some kind of crazy thing happen to you. You know what I mean? And to have a thought stopper when that kind of thing's being expressed could be a really good thing. And maybe even that the thought coming forward is almost like that injury itself coming forward, and then the thought stops, and then maybe the sound can massage the fold in your consciousness to be smooth,
No, it enables you to process things in a way you would not otherwise be able to.
Mm.
It absolutely does.
So there's you might be able to call it magic. Like there's an aspect of it that's almost inexplicable.
100%. I mean, those emotions you get with music, like you just can't wait, no way to explain that. Like it's very much the same thing. Like this magical element.
Yeah. Well, very cool. I mean, do you have anything in your life like I mentioned, I had this experience with my knee, and I couldn't walk for a couple months, and then it prompted me to start to read and experiment with new things. Like, did you ever have anything like that? I remember you telling me, didn't you used to play polo or something like that? I mean, I've never seen you do anything like that. What's the shift? Like, how'd you go from like playing polo on the horseback,
right,
to like being a sound healer? This is interesting, man. How'd this happen?
Well, I mean, it's yeah. I did a lot of question as a kid, that's for sure. I did a lot of question. And, I'm trying to search for the common thread between, equestrian and the sound healing. And, on face value, there's not much connected there, but I tell you what connects it for me and what draws me to both is its demand of all of my attention.
Mm.
When I was writing, it demanded all of me. I couldn't be thinking about anything else. Like with the writing, like, if you do something right, the horse responds, and it's very clear if you do something right or wrong. And with the sound, it's a very much of the same thing. When I'm like, playing with the gongs or finding different overtones and harmonics between the different notes of the gongs and the handpan, or like combining. It requires all of my energy. It requires all of my focus. More importantly, this mental focus aspect of it, because not many things in life do that for me. Demand all of me. And like I really
Like skiing or snowboarding.
precisely like it's something that like really requires you to be 100% there. And I like that. I like being in that place. It's a very like positive, like productive place for me. So the sound does that for me. The sound itself is like certainly changing my brainwave activity and like calming me down. But, when you have a chance to really study the instruments and be with it with the range of mallets I have and like explore the range of tones in these instruments, which a lot of them are quite subtle, but they are there. It requires you just to like, open yourself to be receptive. And being in that place of combining notes and discovering new combinations between instruments, that and the equestrian, what that did for me mentally is the same thing.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I would imagine I'm imagining you in your description, like riding a horse and being like super connected with the horse. I mean, do you feel like there's that part of you that can connect with a horse like that? Is a similar part of you that is connecting in with some of these subtle vibrations and everything?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a relationship with both, like whether it's the animal or with these instruments, and you have to know like how they behave and how they respond, and like, know what you want to get out of it, and then know how to get out of it what you want. You know what I mean? So yes, like the process of like you visualizing the imagination of like what you're going after, and then like knowing how to like manifest that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, knowing what you do with these gongs, I understand what you're saying, but I'm wondering maybe we could have you do a quick little demonstration. that was pretty cool. Thanks for the demonstration.
You're welcome.
We should make an instructional video for these things or something like that.
Big.
Well, thanks for having me here today. It's been
Yeah.
super fun.
Thanks for coming by, man. This has been super epic. I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
Happy to be part of it.
Yeah, and I can't wait to explore more of what you're doing too.
Right on, man.
It's pretty rad. I mean, I think that there's a lot of possibility from helping people relax more, but also, you know, I've seen you grow a lot. And I remember when you first started playing guitar, you know what I mean? And just how far you've come in your musicianship is amazing.
Thank you, bro.
And that you're using it in this really cool way is so cool. Cause I mean, I feel like a lot of people use music to get attention, but you're actually using music and sound to like create peace and prosperity and you know, beautiful things around you and with the people that you connect with. So I think that's really cool.
Thank you, man. That's exactly what I'm going for, man. Create positive change and meaning and connection.
Yeah. And live a good life.
For real, just
right? Have joy and abundance.
seriously, yeah.
This is the goal.
Seriously.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for your contribution.
You're welcome, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, bro.
Cheers.